try and make you become successful with your projects, with your tech. And yeah, we do talks like these in the developer advocates team. We do a lot of YouTube. We currently have Devtoberfest running. We're very active in the SAP community, but it's not a one-way street. So whenever you have any questions, feedback, just shoot me an email, ask me any question you want, and we'll try and feed the feedback back to the product teams that we work very closely with internally at SAP. All right. So CAP, we've heard a lot about CAP today, which is great. Actually, DJ's talk was the perfect intro, not only topic-wise, but also IDE-wise. So yeah, DJ and I are on the same page when it comes to workflows and our IDE as well. And I know that this is going to make DJ very happy as well. That yeah, 42%. Oh, there's the 42 again. 42% of this talk is going to be a shell script. Good. Okay. So who of you has any clue what server-side rendering means? Just a quick show of hands. Okay, good. A quick word about client-side versus server-side rendering. So nowadays, usually your default UI5 app is client-side rendered. That means if you go to the web page, you go to the index HTML, and it will load the UI5 framework or bootstrap it, and then it will fetch the data, and then combine that with the XML views and the controllers and all the things you have on the client. That means it gets sent to your machine, to your browser, to your phone, your client, and then all the rendering, which essentially means turn my source code into something I can see on the screen, that happens on the client. Okay, so your browser goes to the OData service, pulls the data, gets the XML, and turns that into meaningful HTML and CSS and all that, that then makes sense on your screen so you can see it. Okay, that is client-side rendering. Obviously, that implies there's a lot of processing and logic and things happening on your client, on your device, which sometimes can take a little bit of time. Okay, we all know Fiori elements. You go to a page and then you see the gray bars just doing their thing for seconds and seconds and seconds. That's exactly what happens. So Fiori elements is downloaded, the data is being pulled, and it just takes a little bit of time until you see something meaningful on the screen. Okay, and then we have server-side rendering, which is quite the opposite. So you go somewhere and all it sends you is just raw HTML. Just boom, this is what you need. Okay. Obviously, that works very well for static pages. So if you have something like, let me just put the mic down for a second. If you have something like this, which doesn't really change, right? This looks the same, exact same for every user. And that works very well server-side render because you can essentially just store the HTML and send it to the client in a raw format. But we're going to go into a little more about that. And by the way, this is the repo for my talk. I put some notes here that were generated by AI, but it essentially just goes into what I just said. There's performance trade-offs, and there's a use case for both of these approaches. And all I want to do here today is I don't want to say this is good, this is bad, we should all do this or that. I just want to show you a few things that you might not know and inspire you to explore the possibilities a little more, especially with CAP and Node.js, because that's just what I love. So yeah, this is just me reporting from my experiments and what I worked on, and I thought that was quite cool. Okay. As I said, there's no right or wrong, better or worse. There's no one size fits all. Everything has its place, and we tend to go through these cycles. So nowadays everything is client-side rendered, although that like in the React and in other parts of front-end development, server-side rendering picks up again. We used to have server-side rendered pages with the business server pages back then. So we tend, just like with fashion, we tend to go through these cycles. Skinny with baggy jeans and all that. It's just similar analogy maybe. Anyway, let's get started with a sample project, and I think I'll have to put the mic down because I need both of my hands. So I'll try and talk very loud now. Oh wow, thank you. We're gonna be here for like 30 minutes now. Oh,
maybe I can help us.
I'll try and do it one-handed first, because okay. Wow. Oh, there you go. Get a chair. Thanks, Gregor. Okay. So we have a couple of windows open here. The one I want you to pay attention to right now is the one on the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, and I can now say shell hands-on part, and all I have to do now is just hit enter, and it will do things for me, and I will explain what just happened. Okay, so I just automated the steps of creating an app and blah, 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 all that. Okay, so press enter to hit create the CAP application. Okay, that's good. So it now does CDS init, it creates a CAP app. And now in the top window, we can say we have a server now. Okay, pretty bare bones. It now runs the npm install. And now I want to create a Vite application. If you don't know what Vite is, it's a dev server. Essentially, that's what most people use it for, a dev server and bundler to create apps. Oh, I thought that was an applause for Vite. But while we're at it, I watched this fantastic documentary last night about Vite. It just came out a day ago. It's fantastic. So definitely check it out if you're interested in that kind of space. Okay, create a Vite application. That's good. I don't want the npm install because I'll do it manually now. And now what we have is we have the CAP server, and now in the app directory we have a Vite app as well. Okay. Feel free to start the CAP server and the Vite application in a separate process. That's very good. So I'll go into the server and do a CDS watch. And I think I'll have to get out of here once. And I'll also do an npm run dev with the Vite app. So if we now go to localhost 4004, we can see the CAP server is serving 2 books. Okay, good. And if we go to localhost, I think it's 5,000 something. Yeah, we have Vite application. Okay, but currently there's no connection between the two. Okay, so this is just a sample Vite thing. So I can now, add some content to that if I want to. And I'll now add a minimal UI5 web components example to the Vite app. UI5 web components is a fairly new thing. So we all know UI5, probably the front-end framework. And now the UI5 team also provides these web components, which is a browser standard, a web browser standard, and it's similar to what a control is. So the button from UI5, the table from UI5. Web components are in their essence similar, but they're built on a different stack. So they're now browser native. Okay, so we don't need the UI5 framework to have a UI5 looking button. Okay, so it's not the UI5 button from the UI5 framework, but it looks exactly and behaves the same way. But it's framework agnostic. Okay, so you don't need the UI5 framework for it. Okay, now we add a Vite config.js. That is essentially just to have a proxy. And if I now refresh that, I think I'll have to kill this server once here. Start it up again. There we go. Okay, so now we have a UI5 table. Okay, it doesn't really look like UI5, but that is essentially the bare bone minimum UI5 table, and it's consuming the CAP server. Okay, but what happens if we just have a look here in the network trace, and if I refresh, we can see that first I get the actual index HTML, but that includes a script that then goes to the books entity here, fetches the data, and then creates the table rows with that data. So that logic happens on the client. This is a very simple scenario, but think 100 rows instead of 2, think multiple things, think more controls. This can blow up quite easily, okay? But still, that's the way we usually do it nowadays. Okay, good. So now that's client-side rendered, okay? Very simple example. And now we will go into the server-side part. So I will now add a REST protocol to the CAP server. What that does is it adds in the service definition here, it adds this annotation to the service. So now, and maybe we can refresh this thing here. So now what you can see here, we have two service endpoints now. We have the standard, OData endpoint to get our books. Okay, fine. But we now have an /SSR endpoint as well. And I just renamed that. But per default, it's REST. I just renamed it because it makes sense in this sample. Okay, but currently this is also just showing us the data, but without the OData thing at the top. Okay, so just a raw array. Okay, good. And now I will implement a cap handler that essentially sends the SSR'd, I made that up, the server-side rendered content to the client. So what that does is it added this piece right here. So whenever we read the books, okay, so someone reads the books, fine. Then we first get the books, we run the query, fine. But now, if the protocol is REST, okay, then we get some index HBS, okay, this is a handlebar template. We'll add that in a second. We compile that template, and then we return the template with the books data, okay? So let's add that template now. And so if it's not REST, if it's OData, in that case, we just return the books, okay? So we don't want to mess with the OData, we just keep that. And we now have this handlebar template, and it is essentially HTML with some added stuff to it. So this is HTML using the UI5 web components. Again, I didn't show you this part in the Vite application before, but it's the same sort of idea. So we use the UI5 table as an HTML tag. Obviously, this is not a default HTML tag. That is UI5 web components logic added to it. And then we have these handlebar handles, maybe. I don't know what the name is. So for each book, and this is similar to data binding in UI5, if you ever worked with it, okay? So for each book, we now sort of duplicate this one row, and then we fill it with the title and the stock, okay? So, or BSP, yeah. Okay, so let's refresh this, go here again, and oh no, this is not what I was expecting, okay? This doesn't look very UI5. Not even the style sheet. So what happened here is we sent this straight to the browser. The browser sees, okay, UI5, but wait, what is the UI5 table? I don't even know what a UI5 table is. Okay, so now we have to add the UI5 web components, alongside that server-side rendered stuff. But that can be quite tricky because the UI5 web components is an NPM module. So when we say npm install UI5 web components, it installs it locally. But then if we send that to the client, well, that UI5 web component has other dependencies, and those dependencies have other dependencies. And it goes on and on and on. And how do we make sure we send the whole tree of dependencies to the client? That's not as trivial as it sounds. In the past, there used to be things like Webpack that take ages. There's this whole area of front-end development that's just devoted to how do we bundle and build our dependencies and send them to the client. Okay, so now first we create a module, this right here, which just imports all the UI5 web components things that we need. Okay, good. But this doesn't do anything so far because we're not sending it to the client yet. Remember, we're just sending the index HBS. Okay, but now we added a custom bundle modules, a custom bundle modules method to the service, and what that does, it's using ESBuild to build our modules, on the server, and ESBuild. I learned this yesterday. I think that it's quite interesting. So ESBuild is an NPM package that has 66 million downloads a week. And it's in version 0.25. So it hasn't even reached production status, which I think is quite interesting. And by the way, Vite uses ESBuild under the hood, which is obviously a big part of why it's so widely being used. Vite has like 35 million downloads a week. Okay, so now we install the UI5 web components and ESBuild so that we have them in our node modules. And now we want to add the bundled output to our template. So we now say, okay, as soon as the catalog service starts, we bundle the modules, and then we get actually what we get is a raw string. We just get a string back, which is all our dependencies. So it's a huge string of all the dependencies and their dependencies and their dependencies just bundled and minified into one big chunk. Okay, couldn't read it. Like we can check out in the console in just a second. It's just a whole mess. You can't make any sense of it. And then we send that script alongside with the template. Okay, and now in the template itself, I added this script type module thing at the top, and now with 3 curly brackets, which means just put it in there without replacing any stuff. Like we just need that for when it's code. We send that along with the server, okay, with the request. Oh, and see it. Oh no, that is the Vite app. My bad. Here we go. Okay, so now we have a fully server-side rendered application built with CAP. And it's looking like UI5. I know it doesn't really look like UI5. It's just a very, very minimal sample. But UI5 web components provide, dynamic page layouts. They provide the flexible column layout, the shell bars, tables, dialogues, cards, everything. So this is just a sample, a proof of concept. So you could build fully server-side rendered web applications on a CAP layer, okay? So let me just think for a second. I hope I didn't forget anything. Oh yeah, that's a good point. So what we can, so let's just inspect that here real quick, and maybe also check the network trace to see that we actually didn't load any data sort of manually. So we went to books, and what we got in books was, where is it? 600. Oh yeah, 600 kilobytes. Okay, so this is our handlebar template, and this is the new script, and this is all the things that were bundled. So as you can see, like, I don't know what that means. Like, okay, whatever. So never try and debug this part. Although there is an option actually in the bundler thing to minify it true or false, and I said true. So maybe if we did false, maybe it would make a little more sense here. But anyway, this is all the output, so it's quite big. But that's not me. That's the UI5 web components. I can't do anything about that. And then this is the actual HTML, so the UI5 table header row, blah blah blah, and it just inserts it does the data binding sort of thing on the server and just sends the raw stuff here. Okay. Good. Okay, so that was server-side rendering on a CAP server. So far, any questions? Did I overwhelm you? I hope this made sort of sense. We can also talk one-on-one if you're interested. Oh yeah, there you go. Ooh. Yeah, so the question was if there was a good caching strategy that we could use here if we had a page that always returns the same data. If there was some efficient way of not re-pulling the data from, I guess, re-pulling the data from the database persistence layer and just have it sort of be there always. If I gave you an answer right now, I would just probably mumble whatever. I would have to do some research to give you a proper answer. So I'm just not going to answer that question right now. DJ? Yeah, I have a directory here that's called One More Thing, and I will go into a little bit of that. So I think what you're referring to is a concept that in React land and in some other frameworks it's called hydration. So you server-side render most of the page, but then there are certain pieces that are still, certain things that are still done on the client, because obviously this table doesn't do anything. I couldn't interact with it, right? Usually you would need buttons, and that button logic needs to be on the client because that's where the click just happens. Okay, so obviously there is easy ways of just having client-side JavaScript as well. Okay. Any other questions? Yep. Yeah, if you don't have JavaScript in the browser, this is not the web components are not for you, I'm afraid. So there are CSS files somewhere here, but I think they're being pulled in like dynamically, and then they create script style tags on the fly and throw them into the DOM. I think that's how they do it. So if we would check the node modules, like a source code for the UI5 web components, there will be styles somewhere there, but web components, as I said, are browser native, but JavaScript is an absolute requirement. Like there's no way around it. Yeah, so good point. So with this simple example, there is not a whole lot of performance gain here, right? Because the client-side example to begin with was super fast and easy. But if you had a very big application that fetches a lot of data from multiple sources, that can sometimes be the bottleneck for how fast the page feels, because maybe you go somewhere and UI5 is ready in 1 second, but it takes 5 seconds to pull the data. It's going to be 5 seconds until you see something meaningful, okay? Even though your client-side code is fast. So it makes sense for applications where you operate very close to the underlying persistent, like if you're in a CAP app and you're just like here, if your application is basically a one-on-one pass-through, it's just a nice view on the raw data, then it makes sense to have this kind of approach. If you have more complex setups, there's no right or wrong here. It's also a lot about preferences. But yeah, performance, if you're operating very close to the data, this makes sense. Okay. Other questions? Oh, yeah. Just wait for the next example. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that is just for the CDS watch server. That's a dev artifact. Yeah. Actually, let's try. Is it CDS run? See? And this detect UI5 is just a Google Chrome extension I have to inspect the UI5 tree. And it says there's no open UI5 or SAP UI5, which is true. I just used the UI5 web components, so not the UI5 framework. So that's where the detect UI5.js comes from. So it's just doing the this one request to get the whole big chunk, and then it's fetching some fonts here as well. Not sure where that happens. Somewhere in the node modules, I guess. All right. Yeah. Oh, a lot of questions. Great. Yeah, well, I could have called it Fiori Web Components as well. Yeah. Good point. I wasn't involved in the naming, but I agree it's kind of confusing because when you hear UI5 Web Components, you think it is UI5, as in UI5 the framework, which is not. But interestingly, all new UI5 controls, so UI5 the framework controls, are being implemented as web components, and they have a wrapper mechanism that translates that into a UI5 control. So also internally in UI5, the framework, they put heavy emphasis on web components. Maybe that's why they wanted to sort of closely align with the whole web components concept and library, and just stick UI5 in front of it. No, that's not what I said. I said all new UI5 controls are being implemented as web components. So still UI5, the framework, operates just like before. It's just that under the hood, they sort of rely on a different stack just for new controls. They're not re-implementing the old quote unquote controls, the existing controls. Still, all the UI5 benefits, data binding, OData connectivity, all these advantages, they're still there, and it's still great, and I love it. It's just proposing a different approach. All right, so now the one more thing. Okay, so one more thing. Okay, so I was so I worked on this talk yesterday, and then pretty late at night I had an idea. So if I look tired now, that's why. And I worked on this, and I thought that might actually be the right and the cool use case for this. So as you can see here, how do you want to render the books data? As a table, as a carousel? These are just two samples I thought kind of made sense. And what happens here is that I do, just like before, all server-side rendered, okay? I have this sort of, I call it a shell, you could say, that doesn't actually contain the books data. Okay, so this is just a server-side rendered UI with an input and a button. Okay, and now I can say, okay, I want to render this as a table. And now what happens is it goes to the CAP server, and it's consuming a template just for a table, and it's just sending that little piece of HTML back to the client, and then the client just inserts that into a special container here. So it's sort of hydrating a server-side rendered shell with another server-side rendered little thingy, and inserts that into the page here on the client. So I think this is a pretty cool use case, because I can now also say, let's do the carousel, and now I get the data in a carousel, and I can sort of swipe through it. So I think this is a pretty cool option. So right now I have sort of hard-coded the templates, so there's only the table and the carousel. But we all know what day and age we live in. Like, it's pretty simple to come up with these short templates on the fly. And this could be a cool option for like these little chat windows where okay, what was the number of sales last month again? And then instead of raw text, you get a little sort of hydrated component that gives you a nice little chart right there inside your chat window. Okay, this is essentially what I was trying to demonstrate here. So currently there is the table and the carousel, and this, for example, is the carousel. So it's quite small, and we could come up with this on the fly using Gen AI, obviously. And this is the table. I think that's even smaller. So that's sort of being hydrated into the existing page on the fly with client-side code, obviously, because if we look here, this is, so we click on the generate button, and then we fetch the SSR component is the endpoint, I called it, and the SSR script as well. And then we get that and create a new script tag and put that new component as inner HTML. Ooh, security, I don't know, but that's just what we're working with for now. We put that in the container. Sort of server-side rendering, very close to CAP and the data with hydration. I think that's a pretty cool use case. Okay, back to the README. When to use what? Okay, we touched on this a little bit, and I also came up with a list. So SSR, if you're building a public-facing website where search engine optimization is crucial, nowadays these crawlers have become so good that they can also work with client-side stuff quite well. But if you think about like some machine goes to a page and they see the whole thing there already, it's a lot easier to make sense of it rather than needing a JavaScript runtime to, create, fetch the data, create something, click there until you see something meaningful. It's way easier if it's just server-side rendered. If you want the fastest possible initial load time and the first contentful paint, as I said, it's just a little faster. If your app has a lot of static content, doesn't change often, as I said, this right here would be a good example. If your app is very custom and freestyle and you only need a few web components here and there, obviously then it makes sense to go for a more experimental approach, I would say. By the way, oh no, that was wrong. Not sure if you ever saw this. Beginning of this year, we came up with the SAP Community Escape House, which is essentially a browser game that, lets you do a gamified tutorial, you could say. So you can, type certain commands here, and then something happens in this room here, and then you get a hint, and then you have to do a tutorial here, and then the result of that is the solution to the next thing. So you put the solution in, something else happens on screen. So it's essentially like a browser game with SAP tutorials, and try to click other things. Okay, click here. No, click here. No. Oh, click here. So you have to do some, obviously I did this once. Oh, and by the way, I built this. And that's also server-side rendered using CAP. So it's using the same sort of technology under the hood. So my point was, if you have a very freestyle sort of playful thing, it's nice to play with this approach as well. Yeah, if you like it, go for it. If you want to improve your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript skills, I think that is sort of underrated nowadays, especially with Gen AI and all these fancy frameworks. But at the end of the day, if you know how these things work, you can come a long, long way, right? We sort of forgot how the basics work, which I think is not good. So if you want to get back, into creating script tags, doing this and that, this is raw HTML, blah blah blah. Try this. I think it's cool. Thank you, DJ. And yeah, also interesting, UI5 web components will natively support server-side rendering in Q4. I have no other information other than this being in the, where is it? Future release. Last one? Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so plan for Q4 this year, server-side rendering with Next.js and more. So I guess that is sort of along the same lines. One little disclaimer. So keep in mind that if you're essentially compressing two architectural levels, the app and the server, into one, that increases complexity quite a bit. It's not good in terms of separation of concerns, which is a big thing in CAP. So the app is here, the server is there, the database is there. So we're breaking with this approach here, and that requires a very clean code or a huge brain, depending on your preferences. And again, client-side rendering, every other use case in SAP land, essentially. As I said, this is just me experimenting. I thought it was cool. I wanted to share it, and I hope you enjoyed it. All right, that's it. Thank you. Yeah, glaube ich. All right, any final questions or concerns? Yeah, go ahead. Progressive web apps. I haven't thought about it, but as we're essentially just sending raw stuff, to the client, we could send anything. We could send manifest JSON that includes all the necessary information. We could send JavaScript that handles offline connectivity. We could do all that. So I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be possible. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, good point. Yeah. Yeah, that could be an option. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. The nice thing is that with this approach, we are starting so low in the tech stack. We're basically working with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We could do anything we want. Going back to, we should all improve our basic skills here. That is also refers from a learning perspective, but also from a capabilities perspective. We could do anything we want here. And I think it's great. And progressive web apps are definitely something to think about in that context. Yeah. All right. I think that's it. Thank you.